Okay, so last week we started looking at the user experience and also user interface design. We looked at the difference between the two. We said the user experience has to do with the user satisfaction, the overall experience the user gets from using the application, whereas the user interface design has to do with the various elements that form the interface, patterns, the text fields, the icons and images, so on. So we move further to look at what we call the storytelling. We said in developing applications, there are some, especially mobile application, there is a flow to that. Okay, so you don't just start when you start, you don't just begin. You don't just begin by just developing your applications, okay, but there's always um, a flow to how you develop your applications. So we started by looking at the storytelling. We started by looking at storytelling. So if I may ask, what is storytelling? What did we say? Storytelling. Let me look for one question, one person. Jonathan. Okay. Jonathan. Okay. So, okay, Jonathan is not here. Um, Emmanuel Cranton, what did we say about storytelling? Emmanuel Cranton. All right, Sarah Malfoy. Sarah, I know I've not given you the slides, but I want to see whether you still remember some of the things. Sarah Malfoy. Please, if you don't respond, I'll assume you are absent.
I'm here.
You are here, okay. So, yes, Sarah, what were some of the things said? If you can mention a few of them. Probably you might not be able to explain it word to word, but hello, yes, Sarah.
Yeah, so you spoke about the UX and the UI.
Yes. So the question has to do with storytelling. Storytelling. So what did we say storytelling is? If you can give us a scenario. All right.
I used one story.
Pardon?
I said I remember you using one story to demonstrate it for us.
Okay. So what exactly did we say about that?
I don't really recall. I remember you saying something about it.
Okay. So um, is it Kenneth? Kenneth upon your
Yes,
hand is
yeah.
up. Yeah.
So you said storytelling is the process of crafting a narrative to communicate the app's purpose, user journey, and value proposition.
Okay, so with all this English, how would you describe it in your own context? I use some examples. I use
Yeah, so you said like its main purpose is to build empathy for the target audience.
so any example. I'm trying to tell whether you understand it
Yeah,
or
so
it's just
you used
you.
you used an example of a certain woman, the persona. You said the woman is a persona who like doesn't have time to work out. So yeah, use something like that.
So can you briefly talk about persona? Give an example with a fitness app. Just a brief one. You
Okay, so
said
say
there should be a narrative about the person. So a storytelling scenario of a persona. Let's say you are Kenneth. So can
yes,
you create a persona about yourself? Take any application and create a persona. For instance, with the story, the example we gave, we said the person was a PR. She's a business, what's it called? She she's a professional, a working professional, 30 years, and wants to stay healthy but struggles to find time to exercise.
yes, yeah.
So that's the persona we created about her. So can you create imagine an app and then create a persona for that app for yourself or for someone? Can use a random person.
Okay, so say so I'm creating let's say a learning app, yeah.
Okay.
And let's say the persona is someone who works, someone who like doesn't have time to study.
So in doing the persona, always put a name of
O-
the person. So
Okay, so
maybe
the
you can use your name.
okay, so the persona is Kenneth and
Okay.
he's 25 years of age.
Okay.
He doesn't have time to work, to study. Yeah.
Are you confessing your sins?
Oh, that's it.
All right, go on.
Yeah, so that's the person, and the narrative is all about like I'm making the app so that I will make time for the person to know that the person can study easily. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
narrative,
Okay.
and the impact will also be so say that's the narrative. Yeah,
Okay. I think that's a good effort.
that's it.
So let me just quickly bring your attention to a few things. Okay. So from this particular
Card.
narrative,
Oh, we have. What do you know? Before
from this particular narrative, okay, it's make mention of three main things that the application is supposed to do. Okay. And that is what will um, that is what guides the developers, the impact the developer has to make. Okay. So the first one says that she downloads the app and then suggests a quick 10 minutes workout. Okay, tailored towards a fitness. So you can tell here that from the persona, she struggles to find time. You get it. So in the narrative, there's something which is a quick 10 minutes workout. So she has that 10 minutes. Okay, so that feature, it should be in the app, something for quick workouts. So the app suggests what? A 10 minutes workout. And that is helping with what? A struggle of not finding time. Okay. Then the app also sends motivational reminders. Okay. So in the sense that she wants to stay healthy, but she needs some form of motivation. Okay. Sometimes you are playing game or you are using an application on your phone. Okay. And the only way you'd enjoy always going back to that application is that there's maybe a feature like a rewarding system, okay, which will always want you to always go back and open the application, okay, and use the application the more. Okay, so that is also being captured here. And then it says what? Making her feel accomplished and encouraged to stay and encouraging her to stay consistent. Okay, so consistency too is here. So if you look at the impact, okay, it says the developer to prioritize features like quick workouts, which is the first thing mentioned here, quick workouts. Okay, push notification, which is for what? The reminders. Okay, and progress tracking, which has to do with what? The consistency of the application. Are we all following? Are we all here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're here.
So anytime you are building a persona and narrative, okay, you should consider some of these narratives, and it should be linked to the impact the application is going to make. Okay, ideally, if you are developing an application, you'll go through the software development life cycle. That is where you look at things like what's it called? The requirements, gathering of requirements, analyzing your requirements, and so on. Okay, then you come to the design. So you would have done all those requirement gathering and planning with your stakeholders before you actually get to this point. And once that is done, it gives you an idea of the functionalities or the features that can be prioritized in your application. Okay. Now let me just mention something quick. Okay. Now you are developing application. There are some few things you need to take note of, or especially after you've gathered requirements. What are some of the requirements we gather in developing application? Software development. What are some of them? You've all done project work before, and I know that you write some of these requirements in your project work. Yes, Baron.
Yeah, so we need to identify the target user that is going to use the application.
Okay. But the requirements, what are some of the requirements you need to take for in developing your application?
So the key functions. So in a case of a fitness tracking app, maybe some of the requirements would be a button for the user to be able to create a workout schedule. So
Okay,
once they've set a plan, yeah.
Yeah. So what type of requirements would you classify that as?
A functional requirement.
Thank you. Exactly. Okay. So that would be under a functional requirement. Okay. Then we have other requirements like the non-functional requirement, the user requirements, and so on. Okay. So you need to gather those requirements. Okay. And it should be clear. It should be clearly outlined in your work that these are the requirements. Then after that, one thing you should take note of is putting them into categories. Okay, I'm saying that because of this keyword here, prioritize the features. Okay, so I'm sure this app would have so many features. Okay, but you can see here that it's prioritizing. There are some key features that are being prioritized in here. Okay. So in developing your application, there are three main categories you should look at. Okay. After you've gathered the requirements, and then you are going to categorize your requirements under this. Okay, so there are some requirements that are must have. Okay, they are must have. You need them. Okay, it must be there. Okay, a typical example is if you are building an application that has to do with transaction. Okay, so the person will be sending money or receiving money and so on. Okay, such an application would have a feature like a security feature like payment. Okay, so in that context, there should be that security feature when it has to do with people making payments via API. That feature should be a must-have. Okay, you can't build an application where there will be transaction, okay, receiving money or sending money, okay, where people's livelihood depends on, and you just deploy such an application without introducing some security features. Okay. So in your requirement, you have something with a non-functional requirement, maybe security. Okay, so that will be considered as must have. Another feature can be maybe there should be a login interface. Okay, that should also be a must have, because if some application that has to do with transaction, okay, and you're not giving any login interface, if anyone gets hold of your phone, the person opens the app, the person can immediately see your bank details, your amount you have on the app, and just withdraw it. Okay, so that can also be a must-have based on the application. Then there are other categories or requirements that should have. Okay, so these ones are should have, but they are not mandatory. They are not mandatory. Okay, they are not. They are not mandatory for your application. They are not mandatory. Let me put it that way. Okay, so they are considered as should have, and there are others too that are considered to be nice to have. Okay, so the nice to have ones are, Charlie, if it's not part of the application, it doesn't make any change to it. So for instance, maybe the user interface should have some image. Okay, should have some image there. If that image is not there, it doesn't mean that the application cannot do what it's supposed to do. Okay, so you look at all the requirements that you give and then put them into this category. Okay? Now you have, once you have them into this category, that can guide you as to how you create a narrative for the persona. Okay, the storytelling narrative. Please, are we all here?
Yes, sir, we are here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Just a minute. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so that is how you come up with your narrative. Then we went on to look at they gave you an example of how you can design your storytelling, okay, with the persona. So if you have the image of the person, you can even put the image here. You can design this in using Photoshop, or there's this other tool, I've forgotten the name. You can also use it to design persona. Then we looked at storytelling. Sorry, sketching. So sketching, we said, is a process of creating a quick, rough, hand-drawn or digital illustration. So basically, what it means is that you have a mobile device. Mainly, you need your paper and pencil, okay? And then you just sketch the device. Okay? Just sketch it. So if it's a login interface, it's a part, or maybe parts for login. Okay, so if I want to design maybe a bank, maybe a bank application, the application will have maybe a background image text that said maybe welcome to ATU Bank app. Then it will give you options with buttons, rounded buttons. This will be maybe login. That means if you already have a credential, okay, then maybe sign up. Then maybe there's an option to maybe activate your account. So maybe activate account. Then you can put some images, or sorry, some icons here. Okay, maybe telephone number icon, maybe icon for FAQs. Okay, icon for maybe cater or something. Okay, put all those icons there. Okay, so this is just a sketch. Then maybe the application's logo will show here. Okay, so this is a sketch of an application, of the login interface of an application. Okay, so sketch basically has to do with a quick, rough, hand-drawn or digital illustration of your application. So there are tools like Procreate, Adobe Fresco, which you can use using a whiteboard or paper to come up with that. Then button shapes, draw shapes for buttons, screens and elements, application, and so on. So when it comes to the storytelling, sketching also, it has a scenario. So for instance, a food delivery app. Okay. So he said the designer sketches a home screen with a search bar at the top, and then a grid of restaurant ads below, and the bottom navigation bar with icons for home, order, and then what? Profile. Okay, so sketch the app with the phone interface. The top has some search navigation bar. There's a search navigation bar. The bottom has a grid cards, okay, showing maybe the restaurant items available in the restaurant. Okay. So those details are given. Then the bottom will have maybe a home screen. So you can use a home building icon. Okay. Then maybe order, and use another icon for the order. And then profile. So the profile can be maybe the head of someone. Okay, so this is just a rough, okay, freehand sketch of whatever application you want to build. That's in it here. All right, so let's continue. Our class rep is here complaining. I'll mind you. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so we are talking about sketching. So it says the sketch shows a rough placement of elements, a rectangular search bar, okay, a square placeholders for the restaurant images. So like I said, it are shown here. And then a stick figure icons for navigation. Okay. Now, depending on the tools you use, if it is Figma, it has icons there that you can use for some of this. Depending on the tool you use, there are icons available. So, for instance, you can go to flat icons. Mostly, if you are using icons, it should be PNG icons. Okay. Now, it says for the impact, the teams review the sketch and decide to move the search bar to a floating button for better visibility. Okay. So we decide to just a moment. Okay. So it was talking about so the team reviews the sketch and decide to move the search bar to a floating button for visibility. Okay, and this iterates before moving it to the wireframe. Okay, so these are things you can do. Usually, they see the sketch, and then they come up with maybe a response. Okay, we think instead of a sketch, it should be a button, a float button. So the float button will just show. So maybe instead of the search button, the search bar, you put a float button there. Okay, so that immediately they click the button, you can see the search bar show, and then you enter the text. Okay, so those comments or those changes can be made, okay, with a sketch, even before you um, move into the application itself. Once we start with the development, you see how the float buttons, okay, look like. All right, so basically with the sketching, like I was saying, you need your paper and your pencil to sketch, or you can use digital apps like Procreate, okay, to sketch your interface. All right. Now the next thing we want to look at is the wireframing. Wireframing. Okay, so wireframing is a creation of detailed or low fidelity blueprint of the app structure, layout, and functionality. Okay, now emphasis on low fidelity. Okay, it's detailed but low fidelity. Okay, and it has to do with the structure of the app, the layout, how the icons and the various things are displayed, and then the functionality. Now it focuses on functionality and user flow using simple shapes and placeholders instead of the final visuals. Okay, so yes, I'm going to use maybe an image in my application, but a wireframe has an element or a placeholder which is used to represent that image. Okay, so anyone sees a wireframe and can tell that, okay, this placeholder here is supposed to be for an image. Okay, so we use simple shapes and placeholders for the wireframe. So you don't use the image. So maybe an image with a guy or a group of students studying. Okay, you can't put that image in your wireframe. Rather, you use an element or a placeholder of the wireframe, which shows that anywhere there's an image, anywhere I see this particular placeholder, it means that place or an image has to be placed there. Okay, so it defines the app structure and navigation, serves as a bridge between sketching, high fidelity design. So the sketching is like your paper, something you drew. The high fidelity design is like the app with all its real images and real buttons and so on. Okay, all showing on the app. That's the high fidelity design. So it serves as a bridge between the sketching and then it allows usability testing before investing in the UI design. Take note of this. It allows usability testing, okay, way before you invest in the design. Okay? If you don't do some of these things and you go straight to the design, anytime you want to make changes, it's difficult. Okay, so people see some of these things. It's like a skeleton of the entire design before decisions are made, okay, or before you even invest to the application. Okay, so it uses tools like Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, and so on. They create grayscale layouts with placeholders and maps out user flow across multiple screens. Okay. So let's look at a practical example, and then we look at some images to depict how your application should, your wireframing should look like. So it's an e-commerce app, okay? We are using an e-commerce app like Amazon. We've all seen Amazon before. We've seen how the application is before. Okay, so it says a wireframing shows the product listing. Okay, so the product listing, you see the top bar with search icon and then the cart icon. Let me see if I can get that image so we can all relate to it. Okay, let me just drop this up here so that we can all relate to it. All right, so if we look at this image here, you can see clearly that it has it says the top bar, okay, that's the Amazon application. The top, you have what's the add to cart or the cart icon. Then you have the fetch bar, okay. And it says there's a rectangular placeholder for the images. So you can see the images, okay, in a particular placeholder. The images are showing here. Okay. Then after the image, there's a text. Okay. Then the ownership of that, the price, the rating, and so on. Okay. So all this is more of a high fidelity design. okay, which has the icons itself. But with the what's it called? With the wireframing, okay, you don't use those icon or images there. Okay, rather there are some placeholders we can use to handle that. All right. Then it said the impact, or another wireframe shows the checkout screen and fields for address payment, okay, and then place order button. Okay. Now the impact is that it helps developers to understand the application structure, how filters interact with the product grid, and allow testers to identify navigation issues, okay, or too many steps to check out. Okay, so all this can be addressed during the wireframing. All right, so wireframing is a clean grayscale digital layout. The mobile screen with a top bar, two icons, maybe a magnifying glass, and then a shopping cart. Then below is a grid of rectangle. That's for the placeholders. And then with lines underneath each. Okay, so the lines underneath will mean, so if there's an image, we put that placeholder there instead of the image. We put a placeholder there to represent image. Then you can see that what they are, the thick line here has what? Two types of text. So there is coded easy share and then digital image. So it says with line, so you just use line to represent what? This text. Then there's another text here. So maybe this line can be a thicker line, which means I should be bold, and this line can be a faint line, which means it's not bolding. Okay. Then you have the price here. You have another text here. Then you have some star here. Okay. So once you do it this way, the person can say that, okay, these two lines I'm seeing here are for text. Okay. And if the lines are deep, the text is bold. If it's not deep, okay, it means it's not bold or it italics or something. Okay, so those descriptions are given. Then it says the bottom bar with 4 labeled boxes. Okay, so one box at the bottom, one for home, one for category, one for cart, one for account, and then an arrow of annotation or annotation show transition. Okay, so maybe you want to move to next or something. Transition to the next page. So product, tap product, or product, tap products to move to the product detail. Okay. So these are some of the elements, okay, or the placeholders you can use. So if it's a logo, you put in there, okay. If it's a header, so more like a text, it's a hyperlink. You see it show this way. If it's an image, so if it's an image, you should also have that X or the cross in it. Then if it's a video, it will have the circle, the cross in it, but the circle with the play button. Then if it's navigation, the arrow left, right, or forward and backwards. Then if you have the text, so the text will be like lines. Okay. Then you have the search, which is the magnifying glass, like I said previously. Okay, 2 icons, magnifying glass, that's for the search. Okay. Then the button, then the list. Okay, so these are some of the basic elements you can use to design your wire, or to use in your wireframing. So if it's an icon, like I said, you can go to flat icons, or you can go to freepik.com to get some of these icons which you can use in your design, in your wireframing. Okay, that's if you are not doing it directly on Figma, or using any other tool. All right, so this is a typical example of a wireframe. Okay. Typical example, mostly some will not use the text. Okay, so they'll use the lines to represent the text. So this is a typical example. So once I see something like this, I know it's a logo, okay, or an image, sorry, a logo, or a company's logo. Maybe the bank logo will be here or something, login. Okay, these are buttons. Okay, then when I come to this aspect, you can see the logo here. You can see that this is a location. Okay, this is a notification. This is a cut. This is a search. Okay, so this is could be, I think, a button. So here are the images of the various items, the text beneath. Okay. So this is an example of wireframing. Okay. So a quick one on the differences. Wireframing focuses on storytelling, uses native storytelling focuses on using native narratives, narratives and emotions. Sketching focuses on using quick ideas, layouts. Then wireframing focuses on structure and then functionality, and also layout as well. In terms of fidelity, storytelling is conceptual, no visuals, and then no visuals or no visuals. Okay, the sketching is low, it's hand drawn, or it's raw. Then the wireframe is medium in the context that is structured or is digital. Then some of the tools you can use for them and so on. So that brings us to the end of our lecture 1. Okay, and then I have an assignment for you. I'll just read it, but I'll make it clear by sending you a PDF outlining what you have to do. Okay, but I'll just mention it so that we can start working on it from now. Hopefully by Monday, your groupings will be out, and then you can meet as a group and work on it. So we have the assignment has to do with you identifying any mobile app. Okay, any mobile application on your phone. Okay, and come up with all that we've learned so far. So there should be a storytelling. Okay, so I want you to come with or design a persona. Okay, like we've done here, to describe, okay, a persona for the application. First, you should let us know what the application is, the name of the application. There should be a persona. Okay, give some details like you can see here. There should be a narrative, okay, as to what the application, who the persona is, and why you have that narrative for the application. Okay, so any application at all, just choose any one application. I know some of you will be during presentation, I'm sure there are people who have the same application, okay, but you should still, how do we say it? There will still be some difference in what maybe I choose EcoBank app. Maybe the other group also chooses EcoBank app. But their persona, the storytelling, the wireframing and things would be different. Okay. So once you do that, the next thing is the sketching. So sketching is the process of the process of designing the application. So you can just take your nice A4 paper and then sketch 5 interfaces. The first 5 interfaces of the application that shows the workflow. Okay, so maybe you start the application, goes to the login screen. After logging in, what's next? What is the flow? Okay, so there should be some flow within whatever you are sketching, okay, for the application. Then the next aspect has to do with the wireframing. So whatever you sketch, now the tools and all that have been given. Okay, so whatever you sketch, look for one of these tools and use it for your wireframing. Okay, use it for the wireframing. Okay. Like I made mention last week, there will be groupings out. Okay, so if you come, these are, in fact, with something like this, if your groupings come 3 in a group, you can maybe 3 in a group or 6 in a group, depending on how I do it. 2 or 1 person can work on one aspect. Okay, so if you are 6 in a group, 2 people can work on the wireframing. The other 2 can work on the storytelling aspects. The other 2 can also work on the what's it called? The other
The
2 can
sketch.
also work on the sketch. Okay, but if you are 3 in a group, each person will work on one. Then you present it accordingly. Okay, so that will be my first assignment for you. The question will be clearly typed and sent together with the grouping. Okay, but you are not presenting it next week, but in 2 weeks, so that you have ample time to work on it. However, next week you have a quiz. Okay, and with the quiz, I'll send out the assessment to be printed. Okay, and we'll use that for the quiz. And also, the groupings will be made available for you to know whether you are part of the first group, which is supposed to report for the first 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes, or you are part of the second. Now, another our week two, we were supposed to, today being week 2, we are supposed to look at the tools we are going to use for the application development, and also how to set it up. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll run you through it briefly and send you a video to help you with setting it up. Okay, so we are going to use VS Code for this. You can also use IntelliJ, or what's the name of the other application? Android Studio. Okay, but in our context, examples we'll be doing in class, we use the VS Code. Okay, now when you have your VS Code installed, you need to install the various extensions that you use. Okay, and also make sure you have your Flutter. Okay, we call it the Flutter kit, the development kit. You have that also installed, or you have that downloaded. Okay, now The Flutter cake is just a toolkit which has made up of the SDKs that you need. Okay, so connecting it with GitHub, VS Code, and so on. So you have to first add the extension. So if it's Flutter, you look for Flutter, look for the Flutter extension. Okay, and then have it downloaded. So if it's Flutter, select it and then install it. Okay, then there are other extensions we use along the line as we get there. Okay, so but for now, download the Flutter and also download that. Okay, that next week we are going to look at that programming language. Okay, look at the basic concept and the syntax. Then in next 2 weeks, we'll start writing our first few programs. Okay, so have it installed. Like I said, I'll send you a video to take you through the configuration. There are other configurations you have to do, like adding the paths and all that. Okay, so this application doesn't take much space. So you can have it installed, okay, and have all those set up all done. And then we can start writing our code and start developing some few applications. Any question before we end the class? Any question? Any question?
Sir, please question.
Yes, Joshua.
Okay, so some of us had issues connecting to the class. So I
Okay.
wanted to ask if we would get a video of this, a recording of
Yes,
this.
and that
Okay.
of last week as well. I'll make them all
Okay.
available together with the
Okay.
series.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Any other? And please, those who joined late, if you can enter your name and index number in the chat as a form of attendance. Yes, I saw a hand up.